Integrity 9.3 provides a simple mechanism to deploy Gateway as a service configuration on a BDDS directly from the Address Manager user interface or from the Address Manager API. BlueCat Gateway allows customers to improve operational efficiency for common and repetitive DDI tasks and can integrate with myriad third-party systems to provide additional value-add or comprehensive solutions. Moreover, Gateway has become the software development kit for adaptive DNS. Adaptive apps and plugins built on Gateway are able to bring value to our customers much faster than through the traditionally longer cycle of integrity. With Gateway now deployable on BDDS, customers are assured that it is now a resilient part of their infrastructure, instead of customers needing to maintain both Docker and the OS of the Linux host machine. BDDS is supported and maintained by BlueCat. In addition, BlueCat maintains Docker as necessary through BDDS updates. In this first demo, we're going to deploy an adaptive application to BDDS, namely Discovery and Visibility 20.2.1 AWS. Let's get started. So this demo is going to be quite straightforward. I have a basic setup here with a couple of servers. Importantly, so this demo we're going to be pulling from our cloud registry. So in 9.3, actually one of the features that is included is the ability to set the DNS resolver on the BDDS from the BAM GUI. So that is also under the service configuration menu where we find Gateway. So I'm going to go here and go to DNS resolver, and just for the purposes of this demo I'm going to put in the Google resolver. All right, let's go back to the service type drop-down menu and select BlueCat Gateway. So from the Gateway Services page, you have the general section to enable Gateway, fields for ports and environment variables, as well as the BAM IP. This is there by default. This is the IP of the BAM that we're logged into. And we also have repository details, the repo, the tag, and username and password, and of course our Gateway status at the bottom. So I'm going to enable Gateway. I'm not going to change the ports or set any new environment variables for this demo. So this demo is to show you how easy it is to pull down Gateway, especially for our adaptive apps and plugins. So in the repository, I'm going to select our AWS Cloud Discovery and Visibility repo. And for the tag, I'm going to enter 20.2.1. As a best practice, always use a version number, do not use latest. Now this is a private repo, so I need to set my Docker username and password. I'll do that here. And I will click Update. This process can take a little bit of time, so we're going to have to speed this along. All right, so it looks like BAM is done. Let's go back to the BlueCat Gateway service page and check on the status. Gateway service is enabled and it's running. So let's open up a new tab and access Gateway. So here I'm going to go to the IPv4 address of the BDDS. This is how one would access Gateway. So I'm logging in with credentials for a Gateway user that I already created in BAM. And here we see Cloud Discovery. I'm going to click on that, and here you see Cloud Discovery 20.2.1 for AWS with the new BAM-like user interface for a consistent and cohesive experience. And that concludes Demo 1, deploying adaptive apps and plugins from the BAM UI with an internet connection. Demo 2, deploying a custom image when BDDS is behind a firewall. So deploying a custom image for production is basically a 4-step process, excluding the prerequisites. You're going to copy the tar package directly to the BDDS. You're going to SSH into the BDDS and use the Docker CLI to unpack the image. Then you will return to the Address Manager UI and set your repo and password if necessary, and any other environment variables, and enable Gateway service. So from the command line, I'm going to copy the tar package directly to the BDDS. You have to pass your root password, and immediately we will see the progress as the file begins to copy. So for the sake of this demo, we're going to speed this along. All right, the file has finished copying. So next, we want to connect to the BDDS via SSH. So I'm just going to punch in the command and the IP. And of course, I'll be prompted for my root password. Put that in here. The next thing we want to do is unpack the image. Now, for this use case, Docker is not running because by default, gateway service is disabled. So just to show you this, I'm going to run the docker load command, which I would use to unpack this image, and we should get an error that Docker isn't running on the box. So to start Docker, run systemctl start docker. All right, so it looks like Docker is up. I'm going to run Docker images just to test. Docker's up and working, and there are no images on the box. So I'm going to run the docker load command again to untar the custom image. All right, Docker has started to work. It's loading the individual layers that comprise the image. Since this is a brand new image on the box, it has to load every single layer. When you upgrade images, when you're replacing the containers, upgrading containers for customers, Docker will only pull the diff from that new image, so loading times will be much faster. Okay, so Docker has loaded the image. I'm going to run the docker images command just to verify that the image is there. There we see it with the repo and the tag. So next, let's go back to BAM. From the servers page, click the name of the BDDS where you have loaded the gateway image. So on the server details page, click the name and select service configuration. From the service type drop-down menu, select BlueCat Gateway. From the gateway service page, enable gateway service. Optionally, you can set ports. You can also set other environment variables that are needed. I won't be doing those in this demo. More important for us in this demo is the repository details. So I'm going to clear the repository and tag fields, and I'll put in the repo of my image, GWBDDS, and my tag is 1. I'll set that there. No need to set the username or password fields because the image is right on the box. So I'm going to click Update. So sometimes it can take a little while to initialize everything and spin up the container. So you might want to wait just a minute or two, refresh the page, and you should see that the container is running. So here I'm going to select BlueCat Gateway again from the service type drop-down menu. And there we see, okay, gateway service checkbox is enabled. We scroll down, status running, gateway is running. So let's go to a new tab in our browser just to verify that gateway is up and running correctly. So I'm on the 95, that's the BDDS that is running gateway. So I'm going to log in with my portal user, and we're in, and deployment was successful. So this is not a standard vanilla gateway container. This is a custom image built on gateway 20.12.1. I baked in our set of host record workflows using the built-in workspace. To recap demo 2, deploying a custom image with BDDS behind a firewall. There were 4 major steps. We copied the tar package to BDDS using SEP. We SSH to the BDDS and then used Docker CLI to unpack the image. And then we returned to BAM to set repository details, environment variables, ports if necessary, and enabled gateway service. For reference, these are the key commands that we used in this demo: the SEP command, the simple SSH command to connect to the BDDS, and docker load, and that is to unpack the tarred image. Demo 3, Enabling and Disabling Gateway Service via API. For this demo, I will use the Postman API client to call the BAM API directly. The first thing we have to do is configure the JSON body. After that, we are going to enable gateway service. We're going to verify that gateway service is enabled with the get server services method. And lastly, we will launch gateway in a browser to verify that the container is up and running normally. Let's begin. I will first set up a tail of the command server logs so you can see that this demo is live and the APIs are actually enabling gateway service. Create a gateway JSON description for configure server services. You can copy and paste the example code from the BlueCat documentation portal. Here, you will define the status of gateway service, enabled or disabled, true or false, the image repo, ports, any environment variables you might need, and of course, the image itself. For this demo, I'm going to set enable to true because we're going to enable the service. And for the image, I'm going to replace gateway 20.12.1 with our AWS Cloud Discovery application. So I will paste in the entire repo, including the image tag. So I'll be pulling the 20.2.1 image. And I'm not going to set the ports here. I'll leave those as default. This is the IP of the BAM I'm connected to. I'll leave that as is. Moving on, the next thing you need to do is set the server object ID of the BDDS where gateway will be running. So you can obtain the server object ID from the BAM UI, click your BDDS, and from the server details page, copy the server object ID. And returning back to Postman, I'm going to set the server object ID as the server ID's param for the configure server services method as well as the get server services method. Next, you're ready to log into BAM. I'm logging in with my Gateway Portal user. Of note, this is a user with both UI and API access. All right, so the login returns the BAM auth token. You are going to want to copy and paste this in to the authorization headers of both the configure server services method and the get server services method. So I will click send and enable gateway service. In the logs, we can see that the Docker configuration was updated successfully. Docker is running properly via PSM. Things are looking good. We have a returned 200 OK status. You get a token in return, which you can use as an input in another API method called get server services configuration status. That will not be demoed here. This token you do not need to enable gateway service. Lastly, let's verify that gateway service has been enabled correctly. So I'm going to run the get server services method, and we get a JSON body returned. This is the complete state of services on the BDDS. If we scroll farther down, we will see the gateway configuration. Here we go. This is the gateway config. As you can see, enable equals true. So gateway service has been enabled. Now let's double check and return to BAM and verify that gateway service is enabled. So I'm going to go back to the servers page. I'm going to select my BDDS, and from service configuration, I'm going to select BlueCat Gateway. All right, so gateway service is enabled, status running, gateway is running. We go back to the browser, enter the IP of the BDDS, and we get the gateway login screen. And it looks like things are good. Gateway service was enabled properly, the container is up and running, and here we see AWS Cloud Discovery and Visibility 20.2.1. So, to recap Demo 3, enabling Gateway service via API, there are three main steps that I performed in this demo. First, I created a JSON description. This is the JSON body that gets passed in the configure server services command. Gateway users can find an example code snippet in the API documentation for 9.3. We logged into BAM to obtain the BAM auth token that we needed to pass in the configure server services and get server services method. We enabled Gateway service by invoking configure server services.
And that's it for part 1 of Gateway on BDDS. Watch part 2 on container management and upgrades.